County Administrator Joy Andrews with us here this morning. We appreciate her time in being here. A comprehensive plan survey. What do we got going on here? How can people get involved with this?
Well, stay tuned. We are actually still in the planning process. We have two consultants, and I wanted to mention the two different studies because I think it's important that I help the residents to understand the distinctions between the two. It can get a little confusing. We are really going strong with our open governance and transparency. So the residents are going to, and in fact, they have gotten hit by a lot of surveys and solicitation of input and listen and learn tour and things like that. So there are a few things are coming up that they can look for. Comprehensive plan update, which is we hired Inspire, who is a really experienced, very highly regarded in the state of Florida as comprehensive plan update consultant firm. We also hired Barry Dunn, which is a very reputable firm who does the strategic plan. So the two, initiatives that we are about to launch in next few months are two very distinctive, different things that we're doing. But the two consultants are working really well together. So the staff is really very intentional and purposeful in trying to make those initiatives to be one so that the residents won't be hit by too many times on surveys and town hall meetings and solicitation of their feedback, online, communication, things like that. So easy, and we're looking at a effective branding and / hashtag on how we can help the residents to remember what the differences are. Comprehensive plan, from Joy Andrews' perspective as a resident, is your way to look at how you want your home, your county, the physical location of St. Johns County to be in the next 10 to 20 years. And so that talks about St. Johns County's land use on conservation, affordable housing, where do you put urban services, where do you put agricultural, where do you put subdivisions, residential, and where you want to see the economic development. So that is essentially a comprehensive plan update that we're doing for the next 15 years. And then, by state statute, you have to update that very regularly. So that is a really large, intense process that is going to take over a year. We are also doing a strategic plan, which essentially for residents, if they can remember, using any hashtag, is your government. How do you want your government to look like? How do you want your public services to be delivered? In what way you want us to prioritize them? And in what way you want us to measure them? And in what way you want to for us to report back to you how you want us to measure and the success and make improvement accordingly. So that's the two different initiatives that we're looking. Both are incredibly important and both require really genuine and authentic engagement with the public. The more informed our residents are, the better they can give us meaningful feedback. So that's really the two differences. So really, we'll make really concerted effort to our marketing and PR campaign to let residents know how they can participate. We don't have the plan rolled out just yet, but we're looking at between February, March, and April for the town halls, the community engagement meetings, and then also online surveys. So We'll find multiple ways of residents' participation and maybe even paper. So
whatever works best for the individual.
Exactly
That's
right.
meeting them where they are. I like that.
Yeah, that's good. So how does that mesh with a more transparent, more open style of governance? What are you guys working on here? Because I'm under the understanding that you guys want to prioritize this. So tell me how.
So to me, open governance and transparency is not really a matter of style. It's really a principle. And I think all governments thrive to be open, to be transparent. But I think the level of commitment is different. So from our side, our team, I think the commitment for transparency is almost parallel to the three things that I'm going to talk a lot into 2024 is the service delivery, which is infrastructure, capital projects, and also your programs, your initiatives, your library services, your after-school program. The enhancement, the collaboration approach of service delivery and how we can improve that is number one. And maintain and improve, of course, because we're looking at so many more people every single day. Secondly, and parallel, equal importance is the financial stewardship. How do we deliver all the services and capital projects without costing more on the residents?
And keeping them alive. Sustainability. I mean, I can drive that home. I'm hearing all this new stuff. I'm like, I hope it stays. That's the other thing.
Yes, absolutely. So keep them alive, and so that we can maintain the level of service. And upon that, if we can get lucky with our state legislators and lucky get our federal legislators, if we are really creative and collaborative, and if we are really easy to work with, and our private community likes us, then we can leverage a lot more resource than our tax bases. And that's really just one component of how we can resource the programs and the projects. But number three, which I think also is the on the same level of importance, is openness and transparency. But they are all tied together. I think for me, we as a team cannot conduct our business effectively, offer our services efficiently without understanding what the community wants. And the community, on the other hand, really cannot tell us what they want, what they like, what they don't like, without understanding what we do. So I think it's that's as simple as that. So we're gonna kind of tackle on those two sides. One is that we're gonna do everything we can to help educate our residents on what do we do. I can actually, we were actually just talking about that yesterday, Wayne and I, and in a team, we were brainstorming how we can put together some sort of residence academy, some sort of 1 to 3 minutes, know how does the library pick the books on the editor's pick shelf? Mm-hmm. How do we pick our solid waste providers, and how your rates are determined? Things like that can be big, can be small. I think it's important for us to find ways to reach our residents and tell our story, and so that they understand how their government and their services are being provided, what kind of rationale is behind all these decisions. They can be big decisions, they can be small decisions. So then they can give us meaningful feedback on, well, I like the program, but I don't know if I like the level of the program you're providing. You need more of it, or you need less of it. So I think that is really the gist of the transparency that we're thriving for. So we created an Office of Performance and Transparency. It's still in its infancy. We're starting with one person. Sarah Taylor is our Chief Performance Officer. And so we're looking at the best practice model, and with the help of all the staff, the directors, on how do we measure what we're doing every day. Yeah. And it's a cultural shift of mindset, and this is one thing that I actually talked to greatly with a friend of mine, Carol Anderson, who's incredibly experienced in performance management and organizational efficiency. And we were just chatting the other day over coffee about vulnerability. How do we as individual and as a government need to be willing to show our vulnerability? We're not perfect. And I think the expectation of us being perfect is unrealistic. And us, somehow, the need and the desire to maintain an image of perfection is unrealistic. Mm-hmm. I think that needs to be removed altogether. We are vulnerable, and we want the community to know that we're doing the best we know how, but there are a lot room and opportunities for improvement. Tell us how. So I think if we can remove that filter of that expectation of you being perfect, and us, the expectation of you seeing me as being perfect, that would solve a lot of problems.
I think that's important. I think people want to not only be able to communicate with our county and city leaders, but they want that open dialogue. They want to know that you guys are humans and not just robots sitting up there, you know, and imposing decisions on the rest of us. So I think that you mentioned the open communication, the dialogue a couple of times. So I think that is a very, very important component about this, you know, because we go to county commission meetings and city commission meetings and things like that, and you know, we have a lot of questions. We have a lot of questions for folks, and for you guys as our county and city leaders. So, you know, I think people feel frustrated when they bring things to a commissions, and this could be county commission, this could be city, this could be beach, all across the board. And, you know, we don't necessarily get a response. We don't have a dialogue. It's just kind of, some people feel like they're talking at the leaders, and the leaders are just like, yeah, okay, we'll take it for now. But, you know, what's the response? Where's the, okay, yes, we understand, and this is how we're addressing that. And so I think creating that dialogue is so vitally important for a well-functioning government.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, the acceptance of vulnerability on both sides, and also the acceptance of being open-minded. You can, you know, from the resident side of it, one thing I would ask of them is that don't ask a question with a predetermined notion already. If you truly want to know the answer from our side, ask the question genuinely. We'll give a genuine answer. And it might not be what you're looking for, but at least you got a real answer. And then that is the beginning of a real dialogue. Now, if you already ask a real, but if it become a rhetoric beginning that there is no genuine dialogue, it takes.
I'm thinking
sides.
of school board meetings when people go off the rails. Let's be honest, and you can't really. There's no sense or logic on sometimes when these arguments. How are you going to prioritize some of this stuff that's going to be in front of you? Are you going to be measuring these metrics, doing these surveys, and then you know the needs that are going to be a need to be assessed in the community? Like, how are you going to prioritize that?
It's a very good question. It's a very complex question. It's and we actually had a meeting with our strategic plan consultant, which the team is formed with impressive academic people who have done so much of these analysis, and it's a science. And I asked the same question. I said, you know, we want to be genuine about putting out performance matrix publicly accessible dashboard. But at the end of the day, you see Joy is doing, got a B. And then what? And so what? So how is their perception of service is this going to affect, at the end of the day, the budget is really the real question. Because if at the end of the day, the board, the most important policy decision is this once a year adopted budget. How you're allocating your resource to provide what service. Where do you place those services at? How big those services are? Those are very complex decisions that they are making. And one fundamental basis of those decisions is how the residents want to prioritize their need for services. So one example, the Karen with the principal of Barry Dunn, we discussed about the budgeting process and how the prioritization from the residents can affect our recommendation to the board to allocate resource. She gave me an example of a police department at this fictional municipality, and you have input of how many FTE, how many police car. You have outcome of based on this, you have the outcome of the rating, the perception of the safety of your neighborhood, how many car was broken into. And so, there's this measure, but then I ask her, okay, well, your example is in a vacuum of one service, but multiply that by 25. This is how many divisions we have, and they're all, in a way, they're collaborating, but in the other way, they are actually competing for the same resource. So and even just in public safety, you have the police department in this example. You also have fire rescue. They both offer critical, important public safety services, but they're also funded by the same resource, which is the residents' property taxes. So how do we prioritize the two? In a perfect world, everybody gets everything, but that's not the case, and we all know that. So how do we, for one, to be creative about financing all the important services that's mandated? And how do we be creative about financing and prioritizing the needs above and beyond being mandated, but it's enhancement of your quality of life? So it is a loaded question and loaded answer. I know I'm not giving you, Davey, the absolute answer, but we are working on searching the answer that the best that we can.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Just stay tuned. I hope that one day I'll come back and we can talk about the algorithm that we're going to be using.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
awesome.
that's a
Yes.
scary one. Sometimes algorithms, oh boy. So I've got one more question for you, and it relates to the transparency issue. This is in my show prep, and I think I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you this question. But we have seen, boy, it's been I don't want to use the word tumultuous, but maybe the last 4 months have been interesting with the county commission. There's been a lot that people have been following, and it's not necessarily county planning. It's more issues with people, personnel, personalities, that type of thing. I've got a story in my show prep here this morning, and the headline is St. Johns County votes not to discuss Krista Keating-Joseph investigation in public. So I'm just going to read a part out of this story, and it says, we all know the deal. Kristen Keating-Joseph was censured. I'm not going to talk about if that's the right decision, the wrong decision. That's not my call to make.
Right,
obviously, I'm not in government. I don't sit in you guys' chairs. So this reads at a recent meeting, the report from an out-of-town attorney regarding Joseph's case was slated for discussion. However, the county's attorney recommended removing this item from the agenda, a suggestion that was met with disappointment from Commission Chair Sarah Arnold. Despite Joseph's willingness to discuss the matter, the rest of the commission voted 4-1 to avoid the topic at the meeting. How does this square with transparency?
Well, there are separate issues.
And I know there's legalities involved in this, obviously,
yes.
right?
Well, in fact, and from my perspective and from the county operations perspective, legality is everything. And legality is everything about this matter. So the county attorney, in fact, the county attorney is the only individual in the county can recommend a SHAPE meeting, which essentially is a non-public meeting. And David, Megan and I talked about it, and I asked him, how those decisions were made and what circumstances those decisions will be made. And it's very prescribed process and very prescribed criteria that you have to meet to be able to call a SHAPE meeting. Essentially, my understanding of that, and I'm probably paraphrasing and not accurately, but basically my understanding is that if you have a litigation that's involving a Board of County Commissioner, in our case, the St. Johns County Board of County Commissioner was sued by an individual, and it just happens this individual also sits on the Board of County Commission. When there is a litigation for them to navigate, for them, when I say them, meaning county attorney assisting Board of County Commissioners, navigating through the judicial process, there is somehow a provision in the state statute that you have the right to protect your residents from the cost of litigation without revealing the litigation strategy. But that is true for really any litigation. It's not specific for this specific one. So I can't speak for David how that decision was made, but that was my understanding of the criteria, how one decision like that could be made.
Yeah.
And will the public see kind of results of this? How will the public kind of keep informed on this? Because this is something that's very unusual, it seems, for a county commission. And I think people are very interested to know how this is going to unfold.
I want to expand on what a SHADE meeting is.
Yep,
I don't think our audience understands a lot about how that works.
Sure.
And a SHADE meeting is because Florida has sunshine laws, everything has to be open to the public and stuff like that. A SHADE meeting comes into play like if there's negotiations for buying a property and it's going to change some of the properties or something like that. So the county attorney, as Joy was saying, can request it be outside of sunshine. So when you hear the word SHADE meeting, that's what I just wanted to define that so everybody kind of understood and was on the same page.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, so obviously not the drama that everybody wants to deal with as a county commission, but obviously something that the public is interested in and wants to know more details as this unfolds.
Sure.
So.
And Pete, to your question, my understanding, because I had to get a crash course from Mr. Miggett as well, how the shade / non-public meeting unfolds, and how does that work in terms of if there is a decision made, would those decisions be made under sunshine? The answer from David to me was yes. So the board does not make decisions in the shade. They do not make a decision in a non-public setting. They only deliberate litigational strategies. But any decisions that have to be voted on has to be voted on under sunshine. So the residents, the public will still see how, the decisions being deliberated and voted on.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Well, Joy Andrews, thank you so much.
Yes.
We appreciate the time that you were able to spend with us here this morning. We went a little bit long, but it's great to just get a good, fuller understanding of what you guys have going on. A lot of exciting stuff in the works. So happy about that. Affordable housing, huge, 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 huge. So good to hear we got stuff in the works there as well.
And I hope we get the museum. That'll be so awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
Awesome. Let's do it. Name it and claim it. I like it.
There you go. Awesome. Joy Andrews, St. Johns County Administrator, thank you for coming in. We appreciate your time.